Good evening. The gang is here. That's usually Joe Gale's line. He's not around today. He's still on break, but the four of us are here, and we encourage you to speak to us. The hashtag is NewsGang. You can also send us a text message to the number 22422, and we're all here. Tonight we'll have the silent memo, the kicker in 3D, the food fight, that is the punchline, and of course my take as well. So let's get it started with what was the 41st and now the final public commemoration of the death of Kenya's founding father, that is President Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. That's the late. So of course that happened today, and we're told it was the last, but it was definitely going out with a bomb. Lots of issues were discussed, including the issue of dynasties. Let's listen to what President Uhuru Kenyatta had to say on that issue of leaders and where they come from, and family names and family ties. Listen.
Huyu mtu fulani dynasty hii, sijui dynasty hii. It's not about that. Leadership is not about where you were born. It's not about where you came from. It's not about the color of your skin. It is not about your tribe. It is just about a desire to serve, a desire to do good, a desire to make a difference in the lives of people. And anybody can do that.
So it's an interesting statement coming from the head of state as he commemorates the 41st anniversary of the first president, who also happens to be his father, addressing the issues right there. I mean, that was the elephant in the room, wasn't it?
Absolutely, Francis? But it wasn't new. It's a running discussion. If you remember, during the memorial service of the late Jane Kiano at St. Francis Anglican Church in Karen, Honorable Raila Odinga discussed that matter. In fact, we have that soundbite.
Yes.
And it would be nice if we were to listen to it and then juxtapose the two bites.
Okay, so let's listen to Raila.
Raila is a product of a dynasty. Raila says Raila the way he is, Uhuru is Uhuru because of himself. You cannot say this is a Kenyatta dynasty. That because of that Uhuru is a part of a dynasty. Odinga, son of Raila, he's just another pauper. You could say he's a hustler.
So it's really the two sons of the biggest political dynasties in the country saying that it's not about dynasties, that anyone can ascend to power.
Of course they know it is about dynasties. Because look at President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. If you were to look at the two politicians, look at the 2002, 2007, 2013, 2017 general elections. The predominant figure there is the two dynasties, no doubt about it. But more fundamentally, who was the subject of this discussion? Were these two soundbites directed in November last year and today? It was obviously Deputy President William Ruto, without saying too many things. Why? Because listen to what Honorable Raila Odinga says at the end of that soundbite. Hustler. Deputy President William Ruto is the de facto leader of the Hustler Nation.
Right.
And he has defined it as such, clearly. And there has been a question of whether 2022 will be an opportunity to end what you call the dynasties hold of the political power in this country or not. So these soundbites were directed at him, no doubt about it.
Okay, and all about 2022 and the Hustler Nation. But you talked about the history of 2002 all the way up until now. But Linus, you are the man of history here.
Custodian.
The encyclopedia.
The custodian and the encyclopedia of the gang. To be fair, this has been since Mzee Jomo Kenyatta and the father, Jaramogi. I mean, this has been going on since the 60s.
Yes, and Uhuru Kenyatta, the president and son of former President Jomo Kenyatta, was for the first time today forced to defend where he stands, where his family stands, and where families of those he considers compatriots, the likes of Odinga, the likes of Moi, who are the reference point when we're talking about dynasties, why they are here. And he had something very interesting to say, that, look, it's not about families, it's about the interest to serve. Now, history bears him out on this argument, because we are calling them dynasties, but actually the correct name for this is political families. Political families is a normal part of a nation's life. It all depends on how it started, and then whether the culture then held within the family. In the US, which is the mother of all democracies, we could say, there are 4 big families that produced 2 presidents each. Adams family had John Adams and John Quincy Adams.
Right, yes.
The Roosevelts, there was Theodore and there was Franklin.
Yeah.
These were first blood cousins. You had Harrison, that's Benjamin Harrison, and also William Harrison. These were brothers. And then, this was father and son. And then we can't forget
Bush.
George W. George H.W. Bush,
yes.
and George W. Bush,
right.
Father and son. Of course, in Kenya, we now have Jomo Kenyatta and Uhuru Kenyatta. The question will always be, how did they get there? Was it through a military coup? Was it through force? Was it through a revolution? No. All of this through elective politics. So how do you start to say, no, these are dynasties? They didn't just find themselves there, they were put there. And I want to make one last point in reference to what Francis raised. This is directed at no one but Deputy President William Ruto, who has started his 2022 campaign and shaped it as a race between hustlers
versus
dynasties.
Yeah.
And so he has had his say. The dynasties are having their say.
Okay. And I think, Yvonne, talking about the hustlers, I think before we listen, we need to listen to this soundbite by William Ruto reflecting on Kenyatta's story.
Our founding father passed on. I remember very well, because we were on school holiday and I was looking after my father's cows. And when around 3 o'clock we were told President Kenyatta had passed on, I remember we hurriedly took the cows home. We ran, literally, because in my mind I thought it was the end of the world. And then in 1980, when I was preparing to do Standard 7 exams, CPE, that was called then, I remember very well when I went to do the exams, I was barefoot, because, of course, that was the nature of the village life. We didn't have shoes. My father bought me my first shoe in 1981 from a Mr. Onyango on the street for 60 shillings because he could not afford the butter shoes. Why am I saying this? Today, as you can see, the gentleman who did not have shoes is sitting at the high table. With the son of the founding father.
In fact, something else that he said.
We know.
Yes.
Now everybody is,
In fact, something else he said at the end of that clip was, I have more reason to thank God than some most of you here.
Yes.
And that is the hustler narrative that we've been talking about. We didn't have to say it, he said it himself.
So now it's clear.
It's clear now. The chicken seller came from nothing into who he is now. And I think part of why he's trying to do that is to try and align himself with the larger population in the country who would aspire to actually work hard and get to that level where you actually are doing well in life and all that, because not many people come from rich families or dynasties, as they are called. And I think that's the narrative he's trying to push. And part of it has been, I don't know if it's the right word to use, exacerbated by the handshake, the March 9th handshake between the president and Raila Odinga, that sort of like cements these two as tuko pamoja, big brother, mimi na wewe, we are together. And it sort of like pushes out the deputy president into maybe his own small, lonely corner. And some would say that this was not how things were, let's say in 2013, when they won the presidency, when Jubilee, tuko pamoja, the white shirt, the red ties, you know, they are a team, you know, they came in together as a team. And that has not been seen in recent days, because the president publicly anamgwangaga hafichi. And I think it's what is something that no one expected they would see now. But even if you look at history, I was trying to read something here about when 2 months before President Daniel Arap Moi sacked his vice president at the time was Mwai Kibaki in 1998. 88. I think he would go to an event, the vice president at the time, hakuna security. He would go to an event where he's supposed to represent the president, but the president sent someone else, a cabinet minister, to speak on his behalf. That also happened to Jaramogi Oginga Odinga when he was vice president, the first vice president. Alianza kuonesha hizo signs before he was eventually dropped. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I think history is a good teacher.
And indeed, the battle is now shaping up to be Raila versus Ruto, right? Especially post-handshake, as you were saying. In fact, that's what prompted the deputy president to then now take on, now as President Uhuru Kenyatta exits the stage, it's now looking like a Raila versus Ruto, and still dynasty versus hustler nation. This is what the deputy president, William Ruto, had to say about what is shaping up to be a battle between the two of them come 2022. Let's listen to Deputy President Ruto.
Mimi sina shida kushindana na yeye kule mbele, lakini nataka nimuulize kwanza, awaambie wa Kenya ya kwamba, na awahakikishie wa Kenya ya kwamba akishindwa hata lete kisirani, hata lete fujo.
You were going to say?
Yes, I think Jamila has touched something about the history and the narrative by the deputy president. One of the things going forward that will be subjected to strict proof is the story of the deputy president, because he has made the argument that he is a hustler. He's really persistently said he's coming from nowhere, like we saw in the breakfast, he's coming from nowhere to somewhere. But if you look at his story, his political life began in the palace of the dynasties. He joined politics in 1992 at the university as part of what was called the Youth for KANU 92, YK 92. We know YK 92 produced not only leaders, but a new generation of very wealthy individuals. Youth for KANU 92 produced the 500 shillings note. The Jirongo. It was famously called Jirongo yes. because of one of the members, that's the chair of the YK 92. YK 92 produced landowners, new landowners, people who were suddenly getting allocation of land from government and other favors in order to help President Daniel Arap Moi to win a very tough elections in 1992, the first multi-party election. Now, that is where William Ruto founded his politics, in the palace of the dynasty of Daniel Arap Moi. Then you move on to 2002. He was with Uhuru Kenyatta, and Uhuru Kenyatta lost the election. And he famously, stood by him throughout the campaign, and even during the concession speech, which I covered at the Serena Hotel, when Uhuru Kenyatta declared that I now concede, the only concession we've ever had in this country, that Mwai Kibaki will be the next president of the country. Then come 05 and the referendum on the new constitution, and he teamed with Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga to form the ODM. And then that took them to the 2007 election, where he backed Raila Odinga as part of the summit. And then you move on to post 2007, 2008, and the breakdown of their relationship with Raila Odinga, and it shifts back in 2012, late 2012, to team up with Uhuru Kenyatta to form the alliance of URP and Jubilee TNA, that went on to contest the election in 2013. Now, going forward, the point I'm making here is, how can he divorce himself from the story of the dynasties? Because he is not exactly an outsider. And I just want to pick one illustration of an outsider. Okay. An outsider is someone like Narendra Modi.
Okay, the Indian Prime
Minister.
The
Prime Minister of India. He rose from a poor tea seller. He was selling tea and worked through the party ranks. And you know, India is a party democracy. You don't found a party a few months to the elections like we do here. It's not an oven democracy like we do here. It is so deeply seated. You have to really be part of the party politics for you to rise. And he started off by becoming a very successful regional premier of the Gujarati region, and made it a very big success as a country, as a region, economically, very, very strong. And then went on to win the leadership of the BJP party, Bharatiya Janata party, the ruling party currently. So it's a journey you can follow. He was an outsider from the beginning. So for William Ruto, he'll be having this challenge of explaining his career that was basically launched and supported and propped by the dynasties. And then suddenly, after the second term of supporting a dynasty candidate, it turns into a story of haves and have-nots. It's going to be a very interesting conversation.
And talking about interesting also, it's also not very easy to rule him out. It's not easy to write him off. Look at the way he conducts his campaigns in 2013, in 2017, and even how he spearheaded the No campaign in 2010. It will easily tell you that he would easily want to go for it the whole hog. So even the president and the former prime minister, they understand the kind of a person they are dealing with. And so whether he will be able to mobilize the hustler nation, as he calls it, is a different matter altogether. And whether this hustler nation is something that you can tangibly hold. Is it something that you can say, this is a constituency that you can hold? Or is it a constituency that is very dicey? Yeah, a constituency that tells you tuko pamoja, but is influenced by very many other factors and then departs from you, maybe at the very hour of need. So whether he can really concretize this hustler nation, drive the hustler narrative, and run away with it in 2022 is something that it would be interesting to watch out for. Okay, and just before we take a break, something else significant happened today. Of course, we were told it's the 41st and the final public commemoration of the death of the late President Jomo Kenyatta. You know, we used to say Hayati, to the extent that some people thought his name was actually Hayati. Let's listen to President Uhuru Kenyatta telling us about how he and his family have consulted and made a decision. Watch.
As President, I have consulted the family of the late Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. And after consulting them, we have agreed together that this is going to be the last celebration, 41 years of Mzee in this manner. We shall each celebrate him as we remember him and in the manner in which we will be doing our things going forward.
We want to take a break. Here's a text message. Says, the fact that the two top leaders are trying to run away from that classification shows they've sensed tough times ahead, especially campaigning against that tag. Their opponents should now go in overdrive and insist on it, for it is now clear that that's their Waterloo or weak point. We want to take a break. When we come back, we have lots more to discuss, including looters versus evaders, and we have an update on Tabitha Karanja and her husband, who were this afternoon arrested and set to be arraigned in court tomorrow.